At the beginning of the film, precisely in 1973, we are introduced to a woman named Cassie Webb and the bodyguard she hired named Ezekiel. They are doing research in the Amazon forest to look for a rare species of spider that can heal various diseases. In their conversation, Ezekiel said that in his legend, apart from being able to cure diseases, poison from the spider can provide superpowers for humans, but Cassie said that he was not at all interested in the myths and legends that the local people said. Cassie, who is heavily pregnant, continues to force herself to search. Meanwhile, Ezekiel returns to the tent and tries to steal the research files. And not long after, somehow they manage to find the spider. But suddenly, Ezekiel killed 2 other researchers and snatched the spider from their hands. Consistent to make it shot. In a critical condition, the Arana tribe in the Amazon forest suddenly came and bring it. In the story of this film is tribal. Arana is a human with powers. The spider that protects the Amazon forest, so in conclusion, before Spider-Man can stick to a wall, the Arana tribe can do all that. The difference is that the Arana tribe can't throw out spider webs like Spider-Man. After being brought into the cave, they performed a ritual on the contestants by giving them spider poison into her body, and soon the baby in her womb was born. Mysterious but fateful life consistently cannot be saved. Decades later, in 2003, the baby was now transformed into a beautiful woman named Cassie. She worked as a medical officer in New York City. At that time, Kai and her colleague, Ben Parker, were seen in a hurry to take the patient to the hospital. Yes, it's true, this is Uncle Ben when he was young. Peter Parker's uncle, after carrying out their duties, was approached by someone. The little boy gave a picture as an expression of thank you, but KY here looks very uncomfortable. Because it turns out that all this time KY has always been felt that relationships between families were not important, because all this time KY felt he had been neglected by his mother. Long story short, the next day Cassie and Ben were seen on duty to rescue an accident victim on a bridge who was trapped in the car. But when the victim managed to get out, the car suddenly closed, making him trapped and drowning. In that situation, KY experienced something strange that made him seem to see in one place at the same time. A network that connects several events between the past and the future by Ben Parker. After that incident, Ben checked Cassie even though Ben advised him to go to the hospital, but Cassie refused after seeing his oxygen numbers had returned to normal to 89, and when Ben took the blood pressure monitor from Cassie's hand. This incident happened again. KY was still using a blood pressure monitor and Ben advised him to go to the hospital, but Cassie told Ben that he was fine because his oxygen levels had returned normal. And when Ben looked at the oxygen number, the number changed as said. Cassie is a short story of the current Ezekiel. Already having superpowers from a spider, he was seen having a nightmare about his death at the hands of 3 spider women. And it turns out he continued to experience this vision every night, and he thought he could kill them first. On the other hand, Cassie and her colleagues were seen gathering at Ben Parker's house because there was a Thanksgiving for the pregnancy of Ben's sister, Ben. None other than Mary Parker, Peter Parker's mother, who is still in the womb in the Ultimate Universe story. Richard Parker is Ben Parker's younger brother who works as a biologist. Maybe because he was busy at work, Richard entrusted his heavily pregnant wife to his older brother, Ben, and not long after, Cassie and Ben got a call that there was an accident that required them to return to duty. When Cassie got there, something strange happened again. He could see the future over and over again. His hands were covered in blood, while he was providing aid to a victim who suddenly turned out to be his colleague, and when he realized this, he rushed over to his colleague and prevented him from driving even though he continued to forbid him from driving, but his colleague refused. And suddenly what happened in his vision turned out to be a real event in the future. On the other hand, Ezek, who has gained CCTV access from the NSA agent he killed, finds out who the real person who killed him was in his dream by relying on the memories he visualized. Got a photo of the 3 spider women in the future who are now still teenagers. Back to the situation he was experiencing, he decided to go to the doctor, but in fact there was nothing strange in the inspection, and when he was at home something strange happened. When he was getting food, suddenly a bird hit him. The window broke, but in fact it was just Cassie's vision a few minutes in the future, even though at first she thought that it wouldn't be changed anything, but when he opened the window the bird came into his house. In other words, he could changing destiny and the future with the abilities he has. Realizing this, Kai intends to investigate what happened to him, and when he was on the train, strange events occurred again. Visions of the future kept repeating themselves in his mind. In this vision, he saw a man who suddenly came and killed the 3 teenagers in the train. And not long after, the man in his vision suddenly appeared approaching them quickly. Kai also asked the 3 teenagers to get off the train. The police, who were suspicious of Kai, suddenly came to arrest him, but suddenly Ezekiel in a costume similar to Spider-Man came chasing them. Luckily Kai and the 3 teenagers managed to escape in a stolen taxi. Long story short, Cassie took the 3 of them into the forest because he thought it was the safest place from Ezekiel's reach, because their conversation was very boring. Introduction. Let's just keep them short, guys. The 3 teenagers are named Eninia, Julia and Madi, although at first Cassie didn't want to interfere in their affairs. But it turns out they all have similarities in their family relationships. Broken home, that's why KY decided to protect the 3 of them. After that, Julia asked Cassie who the man in the spider-like mask was. Hearing this, KY remembered about the research on spiders carried out by his mother. He then decided to go check the files and asked them all to wait for him to arrive. When he returned home, he checked several files belonging to his mother, and as we know, the man who was chasing the 3 teenagers was the former bodyguard that Kai's mother had hired for her research in the Amazon forest. On the other hand, because Kai had not yet arrived, Julia and the others decided to go to restaurant. Without them realizing it could invite Ezekiel to find them at the same time. KY, who knew that they had left, could quickly find them all in a restaurant, but not for long. Then
get down.
It turns out that all of that was just Kai's vision of the next few minutes. Knowing what would happen, Kai made another plan to save them, and that's when Ezekiel arrived. Even though Ezekiel managed to administer a little poison and restrain Cassie, they all managed to escape. From that place, with the reveal of Ezekiel's identity, KY tried to find out. Through his power, his consciousness came back to the restaurant location and met the remaining power of Ezel, and their Ezekiel said what he wanted to do. Killed the 3 teenagers because in the future the 3 girls would kill him when they had gained spider powers. With events that were connected, KY decided to go to the Amazon forest in Peru and entrusted the 3 girls to Ben Parker. Kai's purpose in coming there was none other than to find out answers about the power he has and also traces of research from his mother, and when he arrived there he again had a vision of the incident. Then there was a man who approached KY. He was named Santiago. He was from the Arana tribe who had saved and cared for KY at that time. Baby.
Mother, I would be here.
During that meeting he took KY to a place where his mother died after giving birth to KY. Santiago then told Cassie to make peace with the past and not think that her mother abandoned her, and she also said spider venom, which he gave to his mother's body. Before Key was born, Casey had great powers that he didn't even realize he was capable of. And suddenly, his consciousness was thrown into the cave so that he could connect to the multiverse network and see the past of all the events that happened to his mother, and in fact, Mrs. Kai's goal is to find a species of spider just to be able to cure the disease Casey is suffering from, because there is a genetic disorder that makes Casey unable to survive after being born into the world. After finding out all this, Casey asked Santiago how to replace Ezekiel because he only had the ability to see the future is not enough to stop it, but Santiago says the power of KY is resistant to poison and can see the future is just the beginning, because if KY can master his abilities he can be in more than one place at the same time. Even with his power, KY can have the right to change the times. Next, in another story, Ezekiel and his assistant was tracking the whereabouts of the three girls, and at the same time the three girls were seen at Ben Parker's residence together with Mary, and suddenly Mary's water broke, which forced Ben and the others to take her to the hospital.
Okay, seatbelts everybody.
With Ezekiel coming out of them. Finally, they were able to find them, while KY, who had just arrived at Ben's house, saw a vision of what would happen quickly. He immediately followed them in the paramedic car he had stolen. On the other hand, Ezekiel finally got it.
Back into traffic control.
Why is no one?
Whoa, whoa.
Found them, however, when he wanted to throw the bomb towards Ben, Kai came and hit Ezekiel. With enough time, KY immediately took the three girls to leave immediately. Meanwhile, Ben Parker continuing their journey to the hospital on their escape. Casey had a vision of the future as to how they could escape in the paramedics' car, and then asked for help from NIPD to be able to pick up the victim in an emergency on the roof of the burning fireworks building. With his plan, he intended to trap Ezekiel and burn him in the building. And when they arrived on the roof of the building, suddenly Ezekiel came and blew up the helicopter, in chaos. There is no other way for KY other than this. Fighting Ezekiel with his psychic powers. He also tried to save three teenagers. That's such a hassle.
Great hour will come.
Seeing that, Ezekiel of course didn't stay. Remained silent until finally luring Z to the top of the building, which was about to collapse from his sight. But unfortunately this also caused KY to fall into the river with the building debris, and unfortunately, his eyes were hit by fire. Luckily Julia was quickly able to save him. After the incident, even though it had congratulations, KY was declared paralyzed and blind by the hospital, but he is still grateful because he saved the future of the three girls. And Madam Webb's journey with the three spider women in the future will continue.
Discover you are always more powerful than you.
The story of Ben Parker is seen accompanying Mary, who has gave birth to her nephew, and they named the baby Peter Parker.
Seems to fit.
And the film finished.